Alrighty, welcome ladies and gentlemen to the prep phase, preparing you for every single week of the upcoming EUL and APAC North League. My name is Jess. I'll be bringing you hopefully some good insights each week, but I'll also be bringing you coffee sipping ASMR and a bunch of other banter that hopefully you either enjoy, and if you don't, well, too bad. Thanks for being here, guys. I appreciate it. Those of you who are watching me live on Twitch, thank you for being here live. And those of you who are watching me later on YouTube or listening on all of the different podcasting mediums where the prep phase sort of goes after it gets recorded live, thank you so much for listening. We'll start off with that coffee ASMR now. We love a good cup of coffee here at the prep phase. It is just me today. Why? Because I got a message, I'm going to say about 3 hours ago on Twitter, and someone said, when's the next episode of the prep phase? And I kind of was like, well, I didn't plan one, but since you asked so nicely, let's just do one tonight. So here we are. This was unplanned, but I figured, you know what? The podcast is called the prep phase. So if I'm not out there giving you guys the best prep phase for the coming weeks ahead, then, well, I'm not doing my job. Those of you in chat wondering what the prep phase is, it started off about preparing you for all the issues and topics or hot topics of competitive Siege, and now I'm thinking about warping it into a little bit of a let me prepare you for each week of competitive play now that the season begins again as of Monday. For those of you who are unaware, I have been picked as one of the talent as a caster, analyst, and well, it also says host, but hopefully Milosh will be the one to continue to consistently be your host. But I have been picked up as the talent for the EUL, which is the new version of the Pro League. It's not called Pro League anymore, but the European League. And I will also be your Asia Pacific North caster, analyst, etc. I'm predominantly an analyst, but you will see me color casting a couple of games each day throughout the week. So from Monday to Thursday, I'm jam-packing your screens with some of that Aussie accent. Nothing you can do about it. So, without further ado, let's begin this podcast. I don't want to go for too long for today. And that's because, I don't know, sometimes my podcasts go for hours and hours, and that's fun, and that's great. But I also want to try and be as concise and summarize all of the details, all of the information for the coming week, because you might only be here to learn about the EUL, and you don't really care that much about APAC North League, or vice versa. You might not care about the EU League and you want to know more about APAC North. That's fine with me. So let's see what we have ahead of us, what the schedule looks like. And for those of you who want to know how to find out more information about Siege and the games and the teams, the best resource that exists for the just base level information is liquipedia.net. I can't rate them highly enough. Everything they have on there. You can also see my awkward photo on my account. I'm the one that owns the Jess on Rainbow Six Liquipedia, because I don't know if there are any other Jesses in the Siege community. So, now, what they have called it on Liquipedia is European League Season 1, Stage 1. Now, I believe we're actually calling them phases, not stages. I don't think it really matters. But if you hear us refer to phase or stage, there are different stages to the year. And I'm not going to go over all the structure that's been gone over multiple times before by many other people. But that's how it works. So if you go into Liquipedia and you search European League Season 1, Stage 1, you will see all of the European teams. I'm going to quickly go through them all for you, because I'm hoping to introduce you guys to not only the players and the teams and the organizations, but I'm hoping to introduce you all to the passion that I have for competitive Rainbow Six Siege. I want there to be more lovers of esports. I love esports. I love Rainbow Six Siege esports specifically, and I'm hoping to really engage a lot of the community that might otherwise be a little bit more casual, might not be anywhere near as hardcore as I am. So I want to give you the information just so that, well, maybe you might pop in and pick a team and start going for them. You know what I mean? Start rooting for them each week. And even if you only watch their games, you become far more ingrained in the competitive community. And it's a really tight-knit and awesome community that we have. So I would love it if you guys got involved. I would really appreciate that. If I can help in any way to get you guys involved, that's like my number one goal for you guys. So I appreciate you guys being here. As I said, we'll start off with the EUL. We'll probably refer to it as EUL. So if you're not sure what that acronym is, it's just European League. That's it. It's not called Pro League anymore. I keep accidentally going to say it. I need to drop it because it's not known as that anymore. For those of you who don't know the talent lineup for it, it'll be myself. I'm predominantly an analyst. However, I will be color casting as well. And if Milosh ever gets sick, I will stand in as a host. So I guess I'm like a triple threat. Don't know how threatening I'll seem in all of those roles, but absolutely I've been putting in my work to give you the best that I can for each of those roles. We're also in the first stage, and I don't know how correct this is, so I'm not sure. In the first half of the stage 1 or in stage 1 entirely, or I think it's the first half, Desertu will be in as both the caster and an analyst. And then for the second half and the end of stage 1, Zeronic will stand in. So they're kind of like doing like a piece of the stage each. And I'm not sure whether that will continue as a thing throughout the stages or whether or not, I don't know, maybe Zeronic will do more of stage 2 and vice versa for Desertu. I'm not sure. But they're both involved in some capacity. You just won't see Zeronic for the first little bit, which is totally okay because you'll see him eventually. Then we will have Milosh, who has stated very clearly, publicly and privately, that he will be your host. He will be the guy that you should look to introduce the show and cap it off every single day of EUL and APACNL. All right, so he is the guy you should be looking for. Then, of course, our two newcomers of Geo and Hap. If you don't know who Geo is, I retweeted one of her introductory videos on my Twitter the other day. You can also have a look around Twitter for her. She's a bit active on Reddit as well. So you should find out exactly who she is. She's done some Prem stuff, some CL Qual stuff, those kind of things. Hap is, I've known him for quite a long time, especially in regards to Benelux. He comes from the Netherlands. So he is quite known, especially in the EU region. Not so much in APAC, of course, but we've got a wide diversity of people. So both him being Hap and Geo, they are both predominantly casters. However, they are looking to dip their toes into the analyst desk side of things as well. So you will see them rotate around, which is really cool. I think that's really amazing. Then we will have Devmata and myself, both being Australians. Devmata, you've mostly seen him as an analyst at bigger events like SI and Pro League finals and stuff like that. However, he is predominantly a caster from ANZ. So you'll predominantly see him doing casting, commentating, for those of you who are unsure what casting means. And then, of course, I don't know, that's it. That's the lineup for EUL and APAC North League. So if you're confused about who's going to be bringing you what, well, I really can't tell you because we're all going to be swapping around left, right, and center. Except for Zeronic, who is a self-professed analyst. He does not cast, so he would be a mainstay on the desk. Milosh has stated he is a mainstay as a host, and the rest of us will be going musical chairs between each other's roles throughout the 4 days a week that will be bringing you content, or broadcast more specifically. That is the broadcast talent for both. I'm going to walk you through some of the teams, however, and just, give you a quick line about them. I have my favorite teams. I'll explain to you why they're my favorite teams. Of course, as a caster and analyst and everything like that, it is inappropriate for me to show bias. Even though I come from APAC, it's also inappropriate for me to show bias there. I'm a professional. I know how to talk about these teams very objectively, even if I deep inside hope and pray that certain teams do well, as any sports or esports fan has, then yeah, you'll see me talk about them as objectively as I can. So let me move this over to this screen. I might not be looking at the camera directly, but at least then I will be able to see both the chat and all of the teams and the organizations. All right, so Chaos Esports Club, also just known as Chaos, they have been part of Pro League for a while. They're predominantly Northern European, except for the addition of Cryan recently. He came from the old G2 roster. Before that, he reigned from multiple other teams. He's actually danced around a lot of teams, I'm going to say over the past year and a half. And when I say a lot, it's not like he was roster hopping all the time. I don't want to make it sound like that. But you will most predominantly know the German gunner from his most recent implementation and then removal from the G2 lineup. He is inside a group of players who I would argue are some of the biggest veterans of the game. Chaos shows that their experience is very clear. I would say their strategy as well has always been one that I've been I look at very favorably. I think they're very reliable, but they're also consistently inconsistent. And I think that's been Chaos's biggest problem. Is that, you know, you see them in a match and you see all these wonderful things, and then they just can't seem to back it up with round wins, and you're not entirely sure why. They are a team I find very hard to analyze, because when you're watching them, and I guess on paper, they look like they should have won rounds, and when they don't put those rounds on the board, it can sort of be like, what actually went wrong there? Because they had all of the right answers, but their formulas to get there or something went wrong. Or better analogy is they had all the right formulas, but the answer they ended up with was just completely wrong. So Chaos I personally love Chaos a lot. Even during my time as a coach, I really respected the Chaos rosters and especially their former coach. But yeah, recently just sort of have seemed like they can be dominant and have shown a lot of dominance, but just kept really middle pack. So if you're wondering who Chaos are, maybe with the addition of Crime, we'll see some new thing come out. Some new play style, some new flair of some kind, I'm not sure. But I'm really excited to see what they have to show. The next team, you guys surely will know, or if you don't know, then I'm about to school you, is BDS. BDS is a Swiss organization, correct me if I'm wrong, 90% sure they're Swiss, and they've got a full French lineup. Now, they made a roster change recently, and they got rid of RX and brought in Bride. Now, if you don't know who Bride is, he came from what used to be a full French lineup as well in Team Vitality. And if you don't know who he is, and I'm going to say he's like the kind of player that flies under the radar. He's like the dark horse of all of the European League. He has like some of the highest numbers of 1vx's out of all the players. He can throw around, and then he can also collect around from the fucking depths of despair very quickly. He's the kind of guy that, like, if you wanted to clutch in your team, you'd pick him. So I hope you get to know who Bride is, because he's very underspoken about, and I think he deserves to have a little bit more recognition given his skills. And then the other big name on the roster being Shaiko. You should all know who Shaiko is. If you don't, that's cool. There's a bunch of things you can Google. There's a bunch of things you can learn. I suggest you watch out for his Ashe and Hibana play on attack. That's what he's known for. If he doesn't bring it this season, then I'll be asking why. And if he works on other operators, then I'll be saying, wow, what a good off-season worth of training. That would be very interesting to see. We're seeing a lot of 4-4-4-4-4 in chat. That's exactly what I mean. If you know Shaiko, you know what 4 means, or you know who BDS is. That's BDS. They did quite well at SI 2020. It was unexpected to me that they did that well, even though I wanted them to do well. I've been a BDS fan since their inception. I'm a huge Rafale fan. I think he is a extraordinarily composed support player. I'm a big fan of support and flex players. You'll see that a lot throughout my analysis, and even when I'm casting, for example, you'll see me highlight those deserving players that don't quite get a lot of screen time because they aren't the fraggers. So he is one of my favorite support players, Rafale. Could be a super strong team now with Bride on the board. And I think when I say could be super strong, even though they were strong already, they did not really well in the previous Pro League season. So they have a lot. They're at the bottom of the mountain, right? They have every opportunity to climb now because you going from like last place upwards. I mean, you have nothing to lose really at that point. But the way that they performed at SI 2020 showed that there was obviously some coordination or synergy issues. They made a roster change. Maybe that was the problem. Like, honestly, if that's the problem and they come in blasting into this EUL series or phase or stage or whatever we're going to call it, then I won't be that surprised. I won't be that surprised. Now on to the Russian machines, which I'm going to contradict myself a little bit down the line with another team, but we have known Team Empire as the Russian machines. There is no doubt about it. They've recently made a roster change. Now, this is the key piece of information here. They recently, and way back in the line, if you guys don't know Team Empire originally, when they first got rid of Shockwave, that was a huge, I wouldn't say a scandal, but it was most definitely like a huge roster change. No one expected them to get rid of him. Oh my God, kind of thing. And then they brought in Dan, and then Dan got to Pro League Finals in Milan, which, oh my God, if you ever have a chance to go to Pro League Finals, do it. I love LAN events. They're always so damn fun. They got Dan, and I watched Dan in Milan, and I went, well, he was actually a really cool replacement. So they didn't really do too bad picking up Dan. Dan's been freaking amazing. His stats have always kept up. He joined the team, and he proved he was worth it. And someone in chat just saying they're called stages. Cool. So we'll refer to them as stages from now on rather than phases. And then recently, which was also what I felt to be another scandal, alas is not all roster changes are scandals, but they got rid of Kajeka and brought in Always. Now, this is a Russian-speaking team. So their roster opportunities or roster change opportunities are very limited to Russian-speaking people. I know Kajeka speaks English. I know there are multiple others that also speak English. Joystick as well. He's featured himself speaking quite good English. But you get rid of Kajeka. Okay, so you get rid of one of your big boys. And unfortunately for Team Empire, they're all the big boys. So it wouldn't matter who you got rid of. That's the trouble. So they got rid of Kajeka, bring in Always, and they don't really have any proof that that is another good roster change. We'll have to see. We will have to just see how that roster change goes. They did very poorly, and I'm happy to say it that way. They did very poorly at SI 2020, getting knocked out in groups. They had a very bad showing in their rounds. They didn't look confident at all. I don't know what that was about. Maybe there was some degradation in the team synergy and coordination, hence the roster change. But they didn't do too bad in the previous Pro League season. So there's still a lot of potential there. But they need to prove themselves. Let's just say this. The first 2 play days, which will be as of next week, Monday and Wednesday, whatever I see from them then will be my new first impression of Team Empire. Because they're pretty much a new roster, lineup, and everything, even though it's only been one roster change. But over the period of time of replacing Shockwave and then replacing Kajeka and stuff, there's still enough roster change for me to give them a brand new first impression kind of situation. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wait for the first 2 play days and go, yep, still the Russian machines, gonna blaze, gonna be G2's biggest foe. Again, we'll see if that repeats itself. I'm not sure. Now, speaking of G2, this is a hard one to speak about because if you don't know who this roster is or you don't know the history, it can be very tricky to understand why so many people want to watch G2. Because if you look back at their last Pro League season, it's not like they won. It's not like they dominated it. Do you know what I mean? So, it's one of those things where, okay, you need to know their history to understand why they are so important in Rainbow Six Siege specifically. They also didn't, just like Team Empire, didn't do too well at Six Invitational 2020, of which they usually do extraordinarily well, as we've seen in past Six Invitationals. So they really didn't do that well. They also didn't do that well at OGA Pit. Mind you, they had my man Sabos as a sub in for Six Invitational 2020. So they also had, I truly believe they had roster issues for SI 2020. I do. You cannot have a group of people that's not all synergized, etc. I actually personally thought the amount of plants that were attempted, which is not a stat that is taken by Sabos, was immense. I think if that statistic had been taken, I would have been able to prove that he was one of the most, or was attempting to be one of the most impactful support players. So yeah, he's going to cop a lot of flack, and he wasn't right for them moving forward, which is totally their prerogative to make that decision. But G2 is one of the teams that has been coined one of the most dominating and fierce teams that's ever existed, especially back when they were Penta. They were undefeated, so on and so forth. You know, from 2018 to 2019, and now that it's come into 2020, and I'm just going back to see what has happened since 2020. It's only been, SI 2020, and then it's been Pro League Season 11, of which they play second, behind Rogue. So they did pretty good. The trouble is, what people don't realize is that, this team plays second in Pro League, European Pro League, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, but if you compare how many games they won and lost, it was almost a 1-for-1. They almost lost the same amount they won. You know what I mean? So it's the same with other teams. Like, if the other team had won one more match, well, then they'd be, in second place. So it was a close battle for that second place. So it was very close for G2 in that regard. I think they're still trying to work things out. And there's obviously a huge roster change in there. The first ever, I'm going to say, I feel confident saying, first Asia Pacific pickup and transfer. It has been the first Asia Pacific, where Virtue from Australia, and he was one of the biggest gunners at Pro League Milan finals. He absolutely popped off. G2 decided, well, that's an investment we want to make. They moved him all the way over to Berlin, and that's where he resides now with these other players of Pengu, Kanter, Raketti, Uno, and Citizen. Citizen was also another roster change they made. They replaced Cryan with him, and Citizen was from Navi. So he was one of the UK boys from Navi. Also a very good fragger, but he played a lot of like Valkyrie and stuff like that, so you can consider him a flex player. Now, I'm going to need coffee because we're only 4 teams through. So we need to get that coffee ASMR happening. Someone in chat just said, no support, only frags. You're in the wrong podcast, buddy. I don't know. Go speak to someone else who enjoys frag-only things, because that ain't me. All right. Speaking about Citizen and Navi, of which I will never refer to them as their full name. I don't know why. I'm always going to call them Navi. I will never call them Natus Vincere. I'm going to call them Navi every time. I don't think anyone calls them their full name in any esport. So go figure. Their roster consists of Nello, Kendrew, Saves, Doki, and Panics. I myself having had the great pleasure of coaching Panics throughout 2018 and that whole situation where I do remember, and I know this is going off on a little bit of a tangent, but we kind of do that in the prep phase here. When a particular player on the team had requested to remove Panics for an incident outside of the game, I remember being one of the most conflicting positions I'd ever felt I had been in, because Panics was the kind of player that would say, hey, on Saturday, do you want to teach me how to learn? Like, do you want to teach me how I can learn not to like tunnel vision when I'm playing. Like, he wanted to do mental coaching. He wanted to bring the morale up in the team. He would always say, boys, don't worry, like this and that. And I felt so conflicted, but I also felt like I had to protect my players at the same time. And it was like this weird, I need to protect my current players because obviously I could not get around the fact that they wanted to remove Paddocks. It had to be. That's what I was told. It had to be. So I let all the other players know. They said, oh, okay, if it has to be that way, then it has to be that way. I said, yes, unfortunately, this has come to, a head and there's no resolving this issue. Unfortunately, we have to replace Paddocks. I remember being so protective of my players that I even said things about Paddocks that I didn't even believe. That's how brainwashed I was into the loyalty of looking after the boys then. So yeah, I had always told him after that like, and I did, I've said it publicly on Twitter multiple times, you were extraordinarily coachable. You always asked questions. You wanted to learn mentality and everything like that. And I was always sincerely so sorry and regretful that I had painted him out to be a bad person when he just simply was not. So I'm going to put that disclaimer there. Now, Paddocks joined the squad recently. Nello, Kendrew, Saves. Well, Saves also joined Paddocks and Saves are the two kind of like newcomers, whereas Nello, Kendrew, Doki, they've been playing for a while. You guys might know their history. They got the M&M history as well. UK massive kind of vibe. That's those guys. They did really well winning Tokoname in Japan. They even said themselves that they were surprised they won, given how much issues they were having at the time. They dropped their coach of Gig, who's now the coach of Giants, and we'll get into APAC North League soon. And they just decided to make some roster changes, a roster change, and then here they are now. They didn't have a smashing last season, but if they have worked on what they said was their problems, then they could be a very fierce force. So I would paint them as an underdog at the moment, as well as the two newcomers from Challenger League. I would paint them as as one of the underdogs, given that now everyone's like raving about all these new EU super teams. They're not really putting Na'Vi in the same box, which I think is a little bit unfair, given they've got quite a strong lineup, especially when it's very cohesive. So we'll see how that pans out. I'm kind of going to do the Team Empire thing and put them in while I'm going to give them a chance to give a new first impression over the first two play days, and we'll see how it pans out. Then Rogue is the next roster. And someone in chat just said, making you seem a bit fake if you're making some BS, I won't say the full word, BS, but big ups for exposing your view. This was something that was spoken about on Twitter many, many, many months ago. How I had told everyone the fact that Paddocks getting dropped again was very unfair. I had said I should never have said those things on Twitter way, way back. So it's not something I'm admitting now. It's not some magically new thing. This is me repeating what has happened months ago. I've admitted this before. So, and Paddocks is very aware of this, and his partner and everything, and I have spoken before. They've been very welcoming of me trying to support Paddocks beyond his Penta days. It wasn't instantaneous, that's for sure, but I most definitely tried to jump in and give my best for Paddocks in the months when especially after leaving Penta, and that's been known for quite a long time. All right, Rogue. Well, this is probably one of the most tricky rosters to go through. It's also the one I have the most bias for. So I need to be careful how I paint them here, because I'm going to I'll probably accidentally paint them super positively, even though they have a really unproven track record, really. So I need to be careful that I'm objective here. However, I have truly believed that in Europe, outside of, the big gunners of like Care to Rickety and then like Joystick way back in the day and everything, I'm not saying way back in the day, but, a little bit ago, that the two most consistent and impressive gunners in Europe are Aces and Leon Gids. Now, I thought this for many, 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 many months, way before now they're now on the same team. I actually never thought I would see Aces and Leon Gids on the same team. Ever. I just never pictured it. I don't know. It's not to say that I thought that they couldn't work together. I just never pictured that being a roster change that would really ever happen. However, here we are. Now, that's not even one of the biggest changes. I mean, Rogue picked up Kajeka onto their roster. So, to me, it's a huge thing that they have so much potential on that team. Like, it's seriously unbelievable. They've got Aces, Corey, Rips, Kajeka, and Leon Gids. Like, if they don't do well, I would be really shocked. I would be really, really shocked. That would come down to synergy and coordination and out-of-game stuff. Because these guys are fucking, like, if you went to the gym and, like, you looked in the corner where all, like, the most hardcore workout gear was and the bodybuilders are there, that's Rogue. That's what Rogue is in Siege now with this roster. They're jacked. They're like the jacked roster. It's like when G2 brought in Virtue, they were like the jacked roster. You couldn't say shit about them because they were in the corner pumping the heaviest weights in the entire gym. So, I can't stress it enough how stacked the Rogue roster now is. It is seriously stacked with a lot of very capable players. It's predominantly German because Aces, Corey, and Rips, they're all German. But with the addition of Kajeka and Leon Gids, well, I mean, it shouldn't go bad. If it does go bad, there's something seriously wrong, but it's not with the players. It is not with the players. I want to say that very clearly. Unless it's with the players' inability to work with others, synergize, practice, whatever it might be, or take it seriously. It's something outside of the gameplay that they are able to present. So, yes, I have a huge bias towards Rogue. Why? Well, I've been following Leon Gids for so long, and I've always thought that Aces is one of the most consistent and scary fraggers in European League. On to the 7th team of Team Vitality. They were, if anyone even remembers, they were a entire French team like a year ago. Right? And I'm probably getting my dates wrong, but I'm trying to give you guys like a timeline here. And now they have the most diverse roster that's ever existed. Well, that's a big statement to make, but Bibu, Goga, Hungry, Rise, and Fabian. Now, I might get their nationalities wrong. Bibu's from France, Goga's from Spain, Hungry's from Germany, obviously. Rise is from Belgium? I know he speaks French, but I don't think he's born in France. Yeah, pretty sure he's from Belgium. People in chat are saying yes. Okay, good. And then Fabian, well, he's a Swede. So that's a lot of nationalities in one team. Now, I'm excited for Vitality, not for the same reason I'm excited for Rogue. The reason I'm excited for Vitality is, well, they've got Fabian in there now. Or Fabian, however you want to say it. His introduction into the team, of which, if you guys can remember, Fabian hasn't played for another team in a long time. He's played with some of the same players for years. So now that he's in this roster and he has an opportunity to essentially step up as a leader and a very well-respected leader in the community, I hope his ability to be a really strong support player, IGL, shot caller, whatever it is he might be doing, really strongly impacts the team. I pray, I hope. I'm very excited. If they get the coordination and synergy correct, then, oh my god, they're going to be a scary team. Like, seriously a scary team. I think I would rank Team Vitality up in one of the top 4 for the season, and the season hasn't even begun. That's how much I think they've got a very well-rounded lineup. You know, one that doesn't rely solely on everyone being super mechanically skilled. I'm thinking that they've also got people in there that are able to step up and better aim those gunners and better position their team coordination wise. So I'm really excited. I'm really excited to bring in Rise and Fabian to that roster. I was like, oh shit, this is crazy. Because you got gunners like Bibu, for example, who can pop off. And imagine you like arm him with Hungary, for example, by his side. I mean, whoa, that's scary. It is. So I really hope that we see some great things from that. But I won't be disappointed if we don't, because the roster changes have been so soon. They've been so recent. So I'm actually not going to judge. If they show up and they look like they're lacking a little coordination or synergy, I'm not going to judge. Really not. On to my favorite team in the world at the moment, which I have said has been one of my favorite teams for all of 2020, some of 2019, but all of 2020. Most of you will know my favorite team is Virtus Pro, VP, I'm going to call them. Why? Because when I watched them in Challenger League, storm through that, and their Raleigh run, everyone remembers, you know, the crazy Challenger League team that had that Raleigh run. Yeah. That was a cool team to me. That was a really cool team to me. I love watching them. And when Shockwave left Team Empire and joined Forza, and like they became VP, what, couple of months ago, 3 months ago max, there is nothing about this roster that we should be downplaying at all. There is no reason after their last season, of which they didn't do too great in the Pro League season, that they now shouldn't be synergized and coordinated with the amount of months they've had. So there's absolutely no excuse for them to not come in gunning. There is none. So the same kind of, I don't know, the same kind of I don't want to sound biased. This is the thing, and this is why I've been thinking about it recently, is like, I don't want to show bias towards team, an obvious bias. It'd be the same as like if we had, Fnatic at SI and stuff like that. Like, I don't want to be like the one that's like, well, because they're Australian, you know, like I'm going to favor them over the others. That's all well and good, but I don't want to be that person. And someone in chat just said, VP is the old Forza, right? Yes. Forza got bought out by VP. Now VP is the guys of WTG, Rask, Shockwave, Pasha, and Emissian, of which I'm going to stuff up when I go to say it very quickly. Guarantee. All right. Someone in chat said, why not? Fnatic are GOAT. Aussies are rare in this game. Very true. It's just hard because I always feel like when you're meant to be objective and you show a little bit of bias, I feel like it like comes across really obvious really quickly that you are biased. And not that that should taint anything you have to say. But I don't want to be, I've got 20 teams that I have to fairly represent over the next however many months. So I really want to make sure I'm doing that to the best of my ability. Virtus Pro, I'm not going to cut them anywhere near as much slack as the other teams. They should be ready to go. That's it. No excuse. I'm probably being harsh on them, but that's the truth. I think this is an amazing team. I think they could be the new Russian machines. And if they have put in the hard work they damn have had time to do, then we should see great things from them. I will do predictions straight after I go through all the teams and all the organizations, and then you guys can chat amongst yourselves or have a little sit there if you're listening to this at a later date and go, yeah, no, I feel that. Or maybe after the matches coming this week, you might go, Jess was right or wrong about this, and so forth. Next one is Tempra Esports, which was formerly known as Easy Dream. This is also a full French lineup. It's got Keoxys, P4, Dirtza, Shinka, and Voy. Having coached Voy myself, I have a little bit of a soft spot for the team. Voy was such a pleasure to coach. Seriously, such a pleasure. He also stood up in one of the leadership roles for the team because a lot of the other players were quite young. I really enjoyed working with him. He was honestly really quite pleasant to work with. So I have no doubt that his imposition in Izzy Dream and now Tempera Esports has been a positive one. I can't imagine him causing any trouble there. He's a great leader. He thinks very clearly. I hope that the team feels that his imposition there has been really beneficial for them. They stormed through Challenger League, and obviously alongside Team Secret, who will go through last. And they're quite a drone-heavy, step-by-step tactical team. You'll notice that they've got really strong gunners. P4, for example, on attack specifically, is quite a gunner. And then Dirtser on defense is also one of those like frag heavy kind of players. And then they've got really heavy support players. So it's kind of like they've got opposite end of the spectrum players. And sometimes it balances out like a seesaw really well. And sometimes it's too overweighted on one side or the other. And you can see them run out of time on attack or whatever. I've been watching their games quite a lot. Well, I'm watching the games. I watched their most recent French League game. I was impressed, but I was also a little bit worried. So you can't put a lot of weight on French League because they may have not been running the full strats, their full Pro League strats, because they didn't need to. So we'll see. And then the last team also reigning from the Challenger League is Team Secret. That's a complete German roster. So it's KS. And I want to be absolutely sure, and I'm hoping someone in chat can say this, is it Driven or Driven? It's just Driven. I'm pretty sure. If someone could correct my pronunciation, because out of all the EUL teams, Team Secret's the one I know the least. I've been trying to get through, their history. Draven? Or Draven? Thank you. All right, so someone's phonetically put that out in chat for me, so that's really good. That's probably the only player's name that I've really struggled with. So Draven, Prano-Expo. So as far as I know, they've played together for a heck of a long time. They've shown that they can really be a force to be reckoned with. So I have high hopes. I just think that their first imposition in the EUL, it's going to take them a while to get used to their opponents, I think, at this level. Especially with brand new EU, so-called EU super teams and stuff like that. I don't know how well they're going to hold up against them. I think they'll surprise a lot of people, but I also don't think that they're like a top 5 contender at the moment. I think they have huge potential, the same as Tempera. I just think they need some time. And I think if we can give them the benefit of the doubt of time, then we'll see them be a really scary team. I really do. I think they'll provide a lot of surprises that we won't be expecting. So that is the 10 EUL teams. The organizations involved with them. And if you're wondering who is Tempera, it's the owners, the general managers of Samsung Morningstars, who have decided to start Tempera, leave Samsung, and they've started Tempera. So brand new organization. This is their first team. Might be their only team. Who knows? That's who they are. The rest of the organizations you should probably know. All right, so the first 2 play days are available up on Liquipedia, and they go in this order. It starts off with Empire versus VP, Tempera versus Chaos, Vitality versus BDS, G2 versus Rogue, and Na'Vi versus Secret. So those will be the first 5 matchups of Playday 1, which starts on Monday. Playday 2 is on the Wednesday, and the matches will be VP versus Tempera, Rogue versus Empire, Na'Vi versus G2, Vitality versus Team Secret, and Chaos versus BDS. So I'm going to go through my predictions just for Playday 1, because my prediction for Playday 2 will completely change after Playday 1, no doubt. So for Playday 1, match number 1 between Empire and VP, my prediction goes as follows. I believe VP will win, or it will be close / a draw. I am leaning towards VP being stronger at this current time. That does not downplay that Empire may have been absolutely hitting the books in this break. So I may be wrong. I may very well be wrong. However, that is my prediction. Match number 2, Tempra versus Chaos. I think given Chaos's implementation or imposition of Cryon, they might just be a little bit more experienced than Tempra. I think that might weigh Tempra down depending on the map. I think that's a lot map dependent, so my pick for that one will be Chaos. For the next matchup between Vitality and BDS, BDS has brought on Bride. Had they have not brought him on, I would have said Team Vitality 100%. However, I believe this will be a close matchup, so it will either be a draw or Vitality will win. I would love to see BDS win it. I really would. I'm just a little bit wary given their recent results. That's all. Between G2 and Rogue, one of the hardest matches to ever, at least for this season, predict. I'm going to say Rogue. Now, a lot of people are going to go, what? G2's like been in Berlin. They'd be like, they live at a boot camp now. They're probably ready to go. I just actually think that you can't prepare for the new Rogue. I actually physically think that no matter how prepared G2 are going into it, Rogue is far too new and probably not in a lot of set strategies, that they'll come in wilding. I don't know how else to put it, but I just have a feeling that they'll just come in absolutely gunning. Now, whether or not Rogue has taken a step back and wants to be a little bit more tactical than we are giving them credit for, then that might change the way that map or that match plays out. But I'm a bit worried for G2 considering they have nothing really on Rogue. So we'll see with their new roster. We'll see how that goes for them. Either G2 will win very dominantly or Rogue will win. And I don't know how close the matchup will be if Rogue will win. Hard to predict when I feel like Rogue is a brand new team. And also irresponsible to predict as well, given Playday 1. Between Na'Vi and Team Secret, I actually think Team Secret might win that. I think that's also very map dependent. That's not to say that Na'Vi, with Doki being back and everything being, set in stone with their roster now, that they aren't damn right ready to go. But I actually think teams will underestimate Secret, and Playday 1 is like one of those days where you'll see them underestimate a team. So I'm going to give Secret the benefit of the doubt there and think that they might actually give Na'Vi a run for their money. So, who knows? That last one's probably my most I'm not going to say unintelligible prediction, but it's one where I'm kind of just, throwing the bait out there and hoping that it hits. So that's for EUL. Those are my predictions. Those are the teams. That's what's going on. Oh, did I get that right? No. Asia Pacific League. I don't even know why I can't find it. You know how I can find it? If I put in Fnatic and I click on their team. I'm on Liquipedia at the moment, guys, as we spoke about before. A great resource of finding all of these pieces of information. Actually, if I go to my Liquipedia page. Oh no, it's called APAC North now. Yeah, okay, cool. Rather than Asia Pacific. Go figure. Alrighty. The teams we have. I don't know why this Liquipedia is so strange. It's got round 1. I don't want round 1. I just want APAC League. North Division Stage 1. There we go. Okay, thank goodness. We found it. All right, so the teams that we have for Asia Pacific North are Cloud9, Cyclops, Athlete Gaming, which we'll just refer to as Cyclops, Giants, Fnatic, Norengo, Q Confirm, FAV Gaming or FAV, Guts Gaming, or Guts, Scars, Talon, Electrify, which was previously Seventh Heaven, and they just got picked up by Electrify, and Xavier Esports. Now, some of you be like, oh, I know some of those names, and some of you be like, I don't know some of those names, and that's probably for a good reason. We know that Asia Pacific has been one of the most underrepresented regions in all of Siege. That has already existed in the competitive environment. I'm not talking about regions that don't have competitive access. I'm talking about Asia Pacific having competitive access for quite a long time now, and they've been heavily underrepresented. Now, as an Australian person myself, for me to get any kind of ground or some running ground in competitive Siege, I felt I had to move overseas to do it. And no one should ever feel that. Now, I would like more representation for the Asia Pacific region. Granted, unfortunately, the South Division of APAC is not covered by us. I am not sure how that's being covered. It is most definitely not being covered by Faceit whatsoever. ESL is running all of Asia Pacific. However, Faceit is managing the talent and those type of things for it. So, I want everyone to be solidly aware about the APAC region. Okay, granted, I only can bring you the northern division of it, but that's better than nothing. So I really want you guys, if you can, find out, just come and watch on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You know, I think in EU time, it's like your lunchtime. And just come and watch and see if there's a team you like. Because some of the playstyles here differ considerably to EU and North American playstyles. They use operators that are not typically meta in other regions, and it's very exciting to watch. It's very exciting to analyze. So it's not that whole monotony anymore. This is something that I really must press. I really want you guys to get involved. If you can get involved in the APAC North League, please do. It's a highly underrepresented but highly passionate region of Siege competitive players, teams, org, support staff, etc. Please, please, please. So we'll start with Cloud9. They were picked up by Cloud9. As you guys remember, they used to have the NA team. Then Cloud9 decided they would pick up a Korean team, which is now Cloud9, which features Envy, Taylor, Sweet Black, Nova, Harper, and Cial. So those are the 5 players there from the Cloud9 roster. I'm not going to talk too in depth about them because unfortunately, the notes that we have all written about them, I don't want any of the other talent to be like, oh, she stole my saying about the team. Like, we've been trying to work as best as we can because not a lot of us are very familiar with the APAC region. A lot of these teams we've never actually seen, quite a few of these teams we've never actually seen play in a tier 1 or even a tier 2 competitive environment. We've had to go back, check out these teams, study them, and some of them haven't had played games in like an official capacity for a long time. So for us, it's about learning what we can and then trying to let them set the new story for themselves going into this season. Then, of course, there's Cyclops, Cyclops Athlete Gaming, which has the players of Newton, Suzuki, Gatorada, Blackray, and Aogato. And welcome to all of those who are joining now. That is the 5 players for Cyclops. Then Giants Gaming, which some of you will think, wait, are they the Spanish ones? Well, I believe they have their Spanish team and then they have their Asia Pacific team. So Giants were the team that also featured at SI 2020, and they've got the coach of Gig, who used to be the coach of Navi. So if you're wondering how you might know them, then that's why. They feature the players of Luna Metal, Ysera, Hysteric, Speak Easy, and Jordan. And I mean, they're a pretty predominantly well-known and well-feared team in Asia Pacific. So that's probably one to look out for. Then, of course, the Australian team, which was meant to move from Australia to Japan. And unfortunately, the whole COVID thing, they got denied. So now they're going to be, at least for the first stage, as far as my knowledge, will be playing from Australia, which means they're going to be on crazy ping. So if you do wonder why they're struggling in the upcoming matches, it'll be their ping. That's why. They are one of the most successful Asia Pacific teams. You know, you think about this SI, last SI, they've done very well for an Asia Pacific team. Very well. That features the roster of Magnet, Lusty, Mentalist, Tex, and Stigs. Tex actually really proved himself at the last SI. Really stood out as one of those key players. And for such a young and new, fresh blood to the team, that was really cool for him. Really cool for him. So it's one of those teams that everyone pretty well knows. If you've been watching SI or anything like that, you'll know Fnatic as the Aussie team. They now have moved into the Division of North. And you can go find statements about that in their Fnatic page and stuff like that. Their coach and manager, their head coach and manager, I should say, put out a statement about it. So if you want to read more into it, Dizzle has given the best that he can so that you guys can understand their decision a bit more. Then, of course, one of the teams that most people know around the world, the Japanese team of Norengo, who, to my very, very... no, I'm not going to say it like that. To the disappointment of myself and my old Penta squad, had to go up against one of the strongest iterations of Norengo that's ever existed at SI 2019. When they had Walker and their whole lineup, they were terrifying. They were very hard to beat. They were very hard to overcome at that time. So their roster now, however, is Meryu, Papilia, Yoshingo, Soulboy, and Simatuki. Now, you're like, wait, where's Walker? Where's JJ? Where's half the other people that, you know, have been on the roster throughout its iteration? Well, Meryu's still there. There's still a couple of, you know, known names in the Japanese scene. But it's just roster changes. Roster changes happen. If you're wondering why they might not show up in full force, the full force you might have known them at SI 2019 and stuff, that's because of roster changes. That's it. They are still considered quite a force, though. So don't downplay the impact they will likely have. Then another team which I have super high hopes for, featuring some of the players I used to cast all the way back in 2018. So these guys have been in the scene. Some of these guys have been in the scene for a long time. And that's Q Confirm. And that features like Collis Healthcare, Producer Boom, Funlex, and Hajime. I don't have much to say other than there's high expectations that hopefully they come in, you know, ready to go. I have strong hopes for them, I really do. Don't know if that's sitting off a little bit of bias maybe, but I know that they should come in quite strong. Then Fav Gaming or FAV Gaming has Typon, Afro, Shin, Chloroform, and Shu. I don't know a lot about Fav. I do know that they've done quite well from the Japanese region. They've always been able to prove consistency. I'm just wondering whether or not they can prove dominance now. We'll see. APAC North League now is got a lot of teams. It's got a lot of teams you got to worry about. Yes, someone in the chat said Chloroform. Yikes, what a name. I also made that comment, so is the rest of the talent. I don't know whether or not he will keep that name. If that's something we have to say on broadcast, well, that's something we have to say on broadcast. We'll see whether or not that gets rectified before Playday 1, which is on Tuesday, but yeah, it's not the greatest name, is it? Then we go across to Guts Gaming, and they are also, so a lot of these teams are Japanese. A lot of these teams are like either Korean or Japanese, but then there's Thai teams and so on. There were other regions brought into APAC North League. We'll go over that as well. Guts Gaming has Crazy Papillon, Lily, JJ, Light, and Yura. They're all Japanese players. Did I already do EU? Yes, unfortunately I've gone through EU, but I'll be doing like a wrap up at the end if you want to stick around for that. So, if the only indication I can give you about Guts is that I expect, given their previous gameplay that I've been able to go over, they are the opposites of Cyclops, for example. So if you want two teams that play in completely different play styles, Cyclops sits at this part of the spectrum, and if you're listening, I'm sort of doing hand motions here, and then Guts sits at the complete opposite end of the spectrum. So I'm excited because there are a lot of teams in APAC North League that have completely opposite play styles, completely opposite ways of focusing on the objective or completely forgetting about the objective. So I'm really interested to see how that plays against each other, how that might be a strength against some teams and a big weakness against others. Then there's Scars. This is a Korean team. We have Demic. I believe it's 11. I have asked for it to be spelt and said multiple times, but it's actually spelt ILEVEN. So I believe it's a play on kind of word thing. 11, Yas, Kanos, and Revi. So those are the roster for that Korean roster. I don't have much to say about Scars myself. I know a lot of my other talent, because we're doing quite a lot of group work around learning these teams, has gone through that team specifically. I haven't been able to do a heck of a lot of study. And what I like to do is I like to focus on each day's worth of broadcasting and teams, and then I'll focus heavily, the 5 or so hours before the broadcast to make sure I'm in the game for all of the teams. So I don't know a lot about that roster. Can't wait to learn more about it as well. If any of the talent tell you they're ready to go with every one of the 20 teams, they're lying. We are all learning about whether or not it's some EU teams or some APAC teams. Some of these rosters are brand new. Some of them have never fully played together. We're going to have to see what they put on the board for us. The other Korean team is Talon Esports, and that's got Egg or EGG, BD, Labyrinth, PMW, and Tomorrow. I don't know. I thought they had another player instead of Tomorrow. Must have been wrong, but that is the other Korean roster. Then we move on to the team that was recently picked up, the team from Taiwan. So when I said that most of these teams come from Japan and Korea, for example, Electrify Esports, which was just picked up, Electrify Esports just picked up 7th Heaven, and they picked up this Taiwanese team, and they're the only Taiwanese team in the league. That features a roster of Ray, Ace, Ed, Sino, and Souffle. I love the name Souffle. And they were, my understanding of how that roster came to be, this Taiwanese roster came to be, was the 2 finalists of the Taiwan qualifiers then mixed their teams, and some went to Valorant and some stayed in Siege, and then they made their roster, and then they got picked up by Electrify. So I really can't analyze this team because, like, it's kind of like, whoa, what even happened to get to this point? So even if we watched, like, old VODs, you'd only be able to watch, like, a certain amount of players. So we will see what Electrify has to offer. Being the only Taiwanese team as well, that's a huge jump for their region, which I'm really excited for. I hope all the Taiwanese fans are, like, jumping in chat, like, going nuts about them. I really hope that. I really do. Then, of course, the Thai team of Xavier Esports has Red Sun, Scatman, DCH, Napew, and Super Onigiri. And they're the Thai team. Now, I can't remember. I'm trying to think how many roster changes since they're not that they used to be a very dominant Xavier. Xavier is still extremely dominant, but they've had a lot of roster changes over the past couple of years as an organization. I don't know some of these players unless they've gone through name changes. I don't know some of these players, even though I know Red Sun, for example. I don't know some of the others. So I'm interested to see how they operate together. Xavier has always held high regard in Asia Pacific esports, specifically around 2018, 2019. That was when, at least for me, that was when, well, you knew who Xavier was in the region. Yeah. So those are the 10 Asia Pacific North League teams. They... 10. It's actually 12. And now I'm thinking about the reason I'm silent is I'm thinking about my Google Drive, and I have 20 folders, so I'm missing 2 teams. And it's very likely Scars, because I said I haven't learned that team yet. And possibly Talon, or it's not Electrify. It might be Xavier, it might be Scars and Xavier that I haven't made folders for yet. Oh. Quick maths, ladies and gentlemen. I'm missing 2 of the Asia Pacific North League teams in my Google Drive. Not that in weeks I've been able to write 15,000 words, but from what I've gone through thus far, I am not up to them yet. So go figure, huh? Go figure. They're not in my folders. Someone said in chat, you're not a robot. Well, as much as I've unfortunately painted myself as one over the past year or so, I'm very much not. So if we go through the predictions for day 1, and I'm actually, I think on Liquipedia they've put this as different days. So what I'm going to do, because I don't want to say anything that that might be accidentally breaking NDA. But they've already announced the game, so I'll get it up on my Twitter. Here we go. Okay, so the first matchup for APAC North League on Tuesday will be Q Confirm versus Norengo. My prediction for that, and this is more of a hope than a full prediction, I hope Q Confirm do really well. I hope Q Confirm do really well throughout the entire stage, the entire everything, the entire league. That's a bit of bias from knowing a few of the players from years ago, so I hope they do well. That kind of experience and knowledge and everything, I just simply always make the assumption that it would do well. That doesn't always translate into gameplay, of course. Norengo has always been known as quite a fierce opponent, so we'll see whether they can back that up here, but I'm hoping for big things from Q Confirm, so that's who I'm going to be throwing my vote in there for. The next matchup is Giants versus Fnatic. That's a huge match. That's like 2 of the titans of the Asia Pacific North League going against each other on the first play day. It's like, I don't know, TSM and SSG going head to head again. That's what it's like in the Asia Pacific North League. So, given Fnatic will be playing on ping, that's got to be horrible. That actually has to be horrible to play on that kind of ping. I'm just thinking how much ping that would be. It'd be 100 and something. Absolutely. So, I'm going to give it to Giants. Not that I don't think Giants couldn't beat them without ping. I'm just more thinking, given the situation, I reckon Giants will be able to overtake them in that particular scenario. Someone in my chat said it should be about 140-ish ping. That would sound about right. Yeah, I would expect something around that. Depends on the server they're playing on. Then the next matchup will be Cyclops versus Fav. I'm really, really excited for that matchup. I want Cyclops to do well, but I think Fav might actually win. Cyclops has shown bursts of greatness, but they're not consistent. So I think Fav might be able to take a bit more advantage of that and win out. So I'm going to throw my vote to Fav, even though I'm a little bit skeptical about that being the truth. There are no ties in Asia Pacific North League, so it'll go overtime, first to 8, boom, you win or you lose. Nothing in between. The next matchup will be Talon Esports versus Cloud9. There supposedly has been some expectations that Talon will beat Cloud9 because a lot of people have made the assumption that Cloud9 has become complacent. I still will back Cloud9 here. I still believe that they've got what it takes to be dominant in the league. We'll see how the first 2 play days go. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. They can create a new first impression with me, and I'm happy with that. So I'm going to back Cloud9 there. Between Guts Gaming and Xavier, I want Xavier to do well here, but I'm not that familiar with them. That one's a hard one to put on the books because I just don't know how these 2 teams will mix. I'm going to throw Xavier a line there and say that I'm going to give my vote to Xavier there. Yeah, Xavier will get my vote for that second last matchup. And then the last matchup, which because we have 12 teams, we have 6 games every Tuesday and Thursday, which is a lot of games, ladies and gentlemen. So let's hope they don't all go overtime, right? Is Electrify versus Scars. Now, given what we spoke about before about the Taiwanese team being, I'm not going to say new. I'm going to say sort of mashed together with, I think it was a team called Notorious or something. They were mashed together with Notorious, and now they've got this team of Electrify Esports. I just think synergy and coordination takes time. Maybe, though, being a little bit more sporadic and not allowing teams to be able to adapt on the fly because you don't know what they're going to do might play in Electrify's favor. So Scars might struggle. I'm going to give Scars my vote, but they might struggle if Electrify come out really wild, as any team would. So those are my votes for the Asia Pacific North League. We've gone through the players, we've gone through the organizations, we've gone through who we think or who I believe might win the first matchups. When I'm doing predictions into the future, like especially after the first week, I'll be more informed, but as it currently exists, a lot of the information I'm using is old to predict, you know what I mean? It's not current. Some of the teams in EUL have what I would consider brand new rosters, could also have brand new play styles. You just don't know. You just don't know how the first play day is going to pan out. And some teams need a little bit of a warm-up going into a season as well. So there's also that factor to play in. Same with Asia Pacific North League. Some of these teams will never have played each other before. Have never played. They have never played. So we really solidly believe that many of these teams in Asia Pacific North League will be trying to set the standard as to how dominant they are in the first week. So the first 2 matchups, whether it be within their own country, you know, Japanese team versus Japanese team or Korean team versus Korean team, then they might verse, you know, the Taiwanese team or whatever. All these different play styles, all these different countries coming together, these sub-regions within the region, will test each other a lot. I think a lot of people will, or a lot of players and a lot of people who are trying to predict will lose out more often than not, because having, like I said before, Guts and Cyclops being the complete opposite end of each other in play styles, how could you really predict how they're going to go when they might do really well against Giants, who are fucking powerhouses of the league alongside Fnatic, for example, but do really bad against lower level teams? You just don't know. So I think for a lot of people, trying to predict Asia Pacific North League, especially for first play day, probably not the way to go. We've got a lot of teams who have never played each other or don't know what to expect from those teams. So let's give the first week to really run down their capabilities a little bit more effectively than I've been able to sort of run it down for you here tonight. Now I'm going back to, what is it? EUL. Oh, they're not calling it that. European League. Sorry. Season 1, Stage 1. We spoke about all the teams there. We spoke about the predictions. If you want to go back in the video, it was all done at the start. Then midway through the video, we did Asia Pacific North League. Now I'm just going to run over what I hope to achieve for Stage 1. Now, as you guys know, all of the talent of us, this background you're seeing here on the podcast, and if you're listening, I'm sorry you can't visually see, but this background is my background for broadcast. The same as, you know, all of the other talent will have their office behind them as well, or their bedrooms or whatever behind them. Stage 1 is completely at home. We cannot risk one of us getting infected and then accidentally causing all of production to go into isolation. It would ruin the league. Especially when it's just kicking back off. We couldn't risk it. It wouldn't have mattered for Dev, Marta, and I anyway, because we're stuck in Australia for the moment. But for the other talent who could fly in and fly out, or travel in and travel out, it would have been more of a risk than it is worth. So I think the great thing about it is that, okay, we're going to all be on our webcams and everything like that. And it's going to look a little bit funny to start off with. But once we do get in the studio, there's so much more we can do. And whilst we're not in the studio, we are quite limited to our at-home setups. So I hope you guys are a little bit cognizant of that fact. I want you guys to be a little bit more forgiving for production and ourselves as to what we can provide and the kind of level of broadcast that we can give you, given that we are stuck at home working from our homes and our offices. So given that fact, my analyst segments, of which I'm out of the whole talent pool, will be doing the most analyst desk segments per day. I will be casting 1 or 2 games a day, but the rest will be on the desk. I want you to know that there is a lot, and I put out a tweet longer. You can jump on my Twitter to check it out. You may have to scroll down a bit, but that's all right. About how analysts, and especially in the segments that will exist online for the first stage, we're tight on time. You know, especially with APAC North League, there's 6 games we need to get through. It's something that you will not be able to be prepared for. You cannot possibly bring up your webcam and attempt, to the best of your ability at the very least, to try and bring in some really high level analysis when the production is not great. We don't have telemetry, for example. We don't have a bunch of things that I would like to be able to give you. We actually also have SiegeGG, and shout out to SiegeGG. That's the other resource I wanted to bring in earlier alongside Liquipedia, that I just don't think is going to be able to implement to the best of our ability. As much as I would love to be able to, like, oh, here's all these stats and here's all these great graphics and stuff like that, we're just not in the studio. So I really hope you guys understand that. And then you're a little bit forgiving of that fact. I appreciate you guys. We cannot use telemetry at home. So someone asked, can you do the map drawing thing from home? No, there is no possibility. Even to the point where if we want replays and stuff like that and being able to talk over them, we have to be able to give enough heads up to production so that they can produce that and have that ready. So our segments will be condensed into mostly monotonous talking points. So you're just gonna have to give us a little bit of leeway there and go, okay, that's how it's going to be to start off with. But the studio is looking so schmick, and the area for the desk and the host and the casters and everything like that, like it's good, it's great, it's gonna be awesome. But this whole online segment to start off with, it's just going to be what it is. We're gonna fucking do our best, and excuse my swearing, we're gonna do our best job to really give you guys the best desk and casting experience we can. But we're using our own gear. We're trying to be cognizant of the fact that there will be ping issues. So for those of us stuck in Australia, to Europe, it's 300 ms. So then there's voice issues, there's ping issues, there's quality issues. I hope you guys understand. Not something that I really, I'm really that happy about, but what can you change about the world at the moment? What can you change? We will do our best. I really can't stress that enough. We will absolutely do our best. We have some of the most sort of hardworking people in our group that you'll come across. And given that we have 22 teams to be specialists on every week, there's not a lot of free time. There's not a lot of free time for us. So really appreciate the understanding and hope that we can bring you guys the best games that we can for the first stage. Everyone's online for the first stage in all the regions. And yeah. Now, more personally, someone said, I guess less streams. I will try, especially on weekends when I have my off time, Friday, Saturday, Sundays. I will do my absolute best to be streaming. However, it will likely be on a... and actually, it probably even won't have to be that late. It'll probably be the same time I've been streaming recently. But it'll be me bringing you streams, probably less days a week. Very much more likely less days a week. And for less of a duration than I would like to. But I need to make sure I'm studying. I need to make sure I'm getting my notes done. I want to provide the best quality of analyst desk and color casting I can. So it means I need to put a lot of time aside each week. Now, I'm opening up the line for questions. We've been going almost an hour and a half, which is good. I didn't want to sort of push beyond that. Can you speak on why Ace of Pyrite and Desert Chew aren't in the talent? Desert Chew is in the talent. He will be doing, and I'm like 90% sure of this, he'll be doing the first half of stage 1, and then we'll be swapping out with Zeronic for the second half. And I don't know if that will continue into future stages. I'm not privy to their negotiations and stuff with Faceit and Ubisoft, but that's what we've been told for stage 1. So Alex will join me in the second half of the stage, and Desert Chew will be there for the first few weeks. Then swap. As for Ace of Pyrite, I want to make this statement very, very clearly. Ace very much deserved a talent spot at this level. Anyone who says otherwise does not know the talent scene of Siege enough to make a comment. I would very much like to hear any argument that states that he did not deserve one of these spots. Now, I have been a fan of Ace for a very long time. Him and I worked Prem way back in the start of 2019 together as well, and I was a big fan of him then, and I've continued to be a big fan of him right up until this point. So, the fact he did not get an offer, which is none of my business, I don't choose who gets offers, I have nothing to do with that, so quite frankly I want to state that's none of my business, who I work with. I'll be a professional no matter who I work with. I don't care if they don't like me or we don't get along. I'm a professional. I will always do the best I can to work with someone to make the best broadcast that we can. State that very clearly. Being a little bit unprofessional now, the fact that Ace didn't get an offer, I believe, is an insult. It detracts from the process and the precedents in Siege that if you work hard, you slowly rise up the ranks, and it's almost like his ranks got cut off. Now, I don't know the reasoning. It's literally none of my business. But absolutely, he should have one of those spots. Whether it was in another caster's spot, whether it was in my spot as an analyst, I really don't think it would have mattered because he deserves a spot either way. Will this change in the future? I don't know. Again, none of my business. But absolute shout out to Ace. He has proved himself time and time and time again in multiple parts of talent work that he is capable and he is well liked and that he has created solid duos with guys like Desert Chew. So that is that's something I do want to state very publicly. I think people thought I didn't have an opinion on it, but I most definitely do. I just didn't make any tweets about it or whatever because it just wasn't, wasn't something I felt that I could really change or do anything about. You're great at this. A few issues won't ruin the entire experience. I hope not, but there are some very critical people out there, especially when you expect a broadcast to be at a certain standard, and especially when we're moving into a new standard of Siege where, we have full studios that are very personalized. You guys are going to love it. I'm excited to get there eventually, but how it starts online is just how it is. It's the way of the world. So I hope that I'm able to really be understanding of the fact that, okay, well, my camera's here and I have to interact with it. I am my own semi-producer in a way, you know what I mean? I'm my own camera woman or cameraman, and I need to be very aware of this fact and make sure I'm really interacting as best I can. Sibling stream, yes. I can give you a little bit of a preview or a spoiler that Desertu, my big brother, he's not actually my big brother, but that's what we call, you know, that's the inside joke. Desertu and I will be the first analysts on the first match of the first play day back for EUL. So we will be on the desk together, first duo up on the desk, and then obviously it will be Hap and Geo, I believe, who will be casting with Dev taking a break, and then that's the first lineup for the first matchup. So Des and I, with obviously Milosh being our host, will be on the analyst desk for the first matchup. Is it a duo that will stand the test of time? Will the siblings really get along on broadcast? I think you're just going to have to be there to see. I think. Your thoughts on the new operator skin restrictions? I believe there should be no skins. That's always been my opinion. I just believe there should be no skins. But I completely understand why like the Pro League sets and all that kind of stuff should be involved, because you need to showcase them somehow. So I love that they've done that. It's a long time coming. I just don't think there should be any skins, but I completely understand why there are certain skins. Yeah. Don't you have to cast for like 7 hours a day? Yeah, long days. long days ahead of us. Monday to Thursday. So predominant amount of my week, I will be sitting here at my desk, broadcasting Siege of some way, shape, or form. Yes. And if I cast on weekends, if I stream on weekends, then it's like 7 days a week. So it's every day. It's a lot of Siege. We have another question of nacho cheese or cheese supreme Doritos. Serious answers only. I go with cheese supreme. Although I don't eat Doritos a heck of a lot, so it's very hard in my head to remember what they taste like. My dearest apology there. Someone's also made the comment that Desertu and I need to get matching outfits. I was actually thinking, and I'm going to put this on Twitter after the podcast, is that I will rep my golden outfit that I wore for the finals of SI 2020 on my day number 1. It'll also get people going, oh yeah, that's the chick from SI as well. So in case people don't remember who I am or know who I am, it's a good little like linking method that I'm going to be throwing in. So I'm going to put on the golden shirt, the Jaguar Cougar shirt, and that's what I'm going to be wearing. For those of you watching right now, of which I'll also do on my stream after this, because I'll be streaming some ranked after this, my grandmother bought me a pajama set. I know we're going way off board here, but I don't see any other questions, so that's fine. My grandmother doesn't like the fact that I wear track pants, and I don't know what you guys call them overseas, track pants around the house, but I also wear track pants to bed because it's winter here, it's quite cold, so I like to, you know, jump into bed with a t-shirt and some track pants, and that's how I go to sleep. She didn't like the fact that I didn't have pajama sets, you know, which, you know, matched each other and were made from flannel or whatever pajama sets are made of. So she went out and bought me a pajama set. Now, I'm about to show you something terrifying. So if you don't like terrifying things, you're happy to leave the stream right now. I'm currently wearing the pajama set. You know, jump out of the shower before and thought, you know what, I'll try this little pajama set on. And I'm going to show you the pants. You can't see the shirt because I'm wearing my little long sleeve. But here are the pants. And I'm wearing them because I don't want to offend my grandmother in any way that I didn't like them. But they're pajamas. No one's going to see them except for you guys who I'm showing now and probably everyone. So these are the bottoms to the pajamas. Now, you're probably wondering, is this really your style, Jess? No, it is not. But when your grandmother says, I bought you pajamas, you better damn wear those pajamas. So I think that's a good little show and tell to end the show on. It's been an hour and a half. Someone had just asked, however, where is Fnatic playing from? We did cover it before, but they've also made the point, which we didn't point out, about going over the ping limit. Now, I believe there has been some, due to the crazy circumstances, they've given them some leeway with their ping, considering they couldn't move. So they will be playing from Australia with very high ping. That's just how it is. That's just how it is. I let my grandma down and not wear that. I mean, no one's really seeing it. Like, I'm in my office by myself, you know what I mean? Yeah. Those pants prove there's no God. You know what? I'm going to show them again. Maybe I can show you what the top looks like. I'm unsure. Oh, maybe I can. It's got a... I'm doing this an injustice. I don't know if you can really see, but it's got like a tiger face. Obviously because the pants are like a panther. Thank you. It's a panther. It's a pink panther. So there's the like panther face, and then like here's the like panther pants, you know? And it is so far from my style. It's absolutely ridiculous. But I love and respect my grandmother, and if she wants me to have a pajama set, I'm a damn wear that pajama set. So again, if you're listening to this on Spotify or SoundCloud or wherever you might be listening to Apple Podcasts, you can go back onto my YouTube, youtube.com/JessGOAT, and you can look at this ridiculous outfit I'm wearing. It's gorgeous. /S. And yeah. Other than that, I have nothing more to add to it. I just wanted to prepare you guys, you know, the prep phase. We need to prepare everyone for the week of games upcoming. The storylines that we will be building on the teams, we are hoping that they establish themselves. We don't want to start a foundation for the teams when we're coming into a brand new format, brand new league, brand new TOs. Some of these teams have brand new players. So what we're hoping is that we can build off whatever the storylines are that they create for the first week specifically. We'll give you history, we'll tell you what's happened already, but we're hoping that they sort of set the precedent for what they want to be known as. Kind of like meeting everyone for the first time again. Those first impression things, that's what we're hoping. So I hope I prepared you for the first week of competitive Siege finally being back. Ladies and gentlemen, competitive Siege is finally back in its full force. Every single glorious region will be back. And I am so insanely excited. It's really hard to keep in. I'm also insanely excited and very humbled that I get to bring it to your screens alongside my very, very capable and awesome colleagues. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to the prep phase. I will be back in another 10 minutes. I'm going to bring you some ranked and whatever else, God knows. We could talk a little bit more. You guys can ask questions there. But as for this episode of the prep phase, it's done and dusted. And I'll bring it back to you next weekend when we talk about the following week of games, when I'm sure there's going to be a lot of things to talk about. Thanks for being here, guys. I will catch you next week.